What's poppin', people? It's Dante, getting my morning started here in the Centennial Arboretum. Look at this beautiful view. You know, I'm listening to the sounds in the morning. They're different this time of the year, right? The summer is here, the mosquitoes are coming out, there's insects that are new that I'm hearing. I'm listening to, are those like cicadas? Cicadas? Wow, what? So peaceful, right? Getting the Rico out here. So today's thought is job versus vocation. And so I was thinking about this idea of what a job is versus a vocation, because it's something really important, because, you know, we spend all of our time and our energy throughout our life working to then produce what? Economic energy, money. And if the goal is essentially to produce that economic energy, well, this to me is what a job is, right? You're working a job to produce this. Look at this bird. Fly, birdie, fly. You're working a job to produce money, and that's the goal. Like, that's it, right? It's kind of base level. And if you're doing that for your lifetime, if you're doing that for 30, 40, 50 years of your life, well, I mean, if the goal is ultimately to produce money, well, is that a life worth living? You know, and this is something I thought about very existentially a few years ago when I found myself at a crossroads between working a job and finding what's truly calling me, which is a vocation. And so a calling is something beyond yourself. A calling is something very divine. You know, you hear the word vocation, it's usually used within religious practices. It's something that a monk is typically called to do, right? To join an order, to be a priest, to you know, pursue a spiritual path, rather. And so I think actually that what's interesting is through following your calling and your vocation, you know, you actually find paradise on earth. And, you know, while your vocation can be cumbersome, it can be something burdensome and something that you have to labor through physical force, through time and energy, there's a more deeper sort of spiritual nourishment and fulfillment that you get through doing something that you genuinely enjoy doing. And I don't know if it's just me, but this seems to be an extremely rare thing. When I interact and engage in society and speak to people, 99% of the time, the person I'm speaking with doesn't actually like the current situation that they are in. And this is a problem. If this is happening at scale, I don't know, this to me seems to be a very miserable existence. And so I found that through returning to my inner child and listening and obeying my conscience, I've been able to find what's truly calling me from God to pursue in my life, which sounds religious in practice, but it's actually very simple. It's just about really tapping in to who you truly and authentically are. And so as a child, I grew up spending my youth in solitude in the Wissahickon forest, building teepees with sticks, bridges with stones, climbing trees, swinging from vines, and exploring the unknown, carving my own paths. And here in Philadelphia, I work as a horticulturalist and have this grand vision of revitalizing a forest here in this 27-acre plot of land that is currently overgrown with weeds and vines, and there's not necessarily a clear path. And I have this like inner child within me that's like, I want to blaze the path. And what's ironic too is there's actually a treehouse. There's a pavilion in this forest, and it's currently under construction, and I can't even access it today because of that fact. And it's like, I want to build that teepee again. I want to blaze the trail. And it's just kind of funny because I've genuinely found that through following my inner child. And here's the other crazy thing, and this is going to sound kind of like ridiculous or whatever, but I'm not even joking. When I was working for the city as a photographer, I remember attending a banquet. And at the banquet, it was just this like hedonic thing of like everyone's drinking alcohol and eating unlimited yummy food from the buffet, and everyone's getting awards. And I was just sitting there and I was like, what are we getting awards for? What has anyone accomplished? Why are we eating and indulging so much? And I felt like this is like the inner, like, I'm just like this little Catholic boy from when I was a little kid. I felt like I was sinning And it sounds so cringe or like weird. Like I felt like I was committing a sin, working in a way where I feel like I'm not producing anything. Like I felt like it was a sin for me to be generating economic energy from seemingly like nothing. And well, you could argue, well, you were doing something. I don't think, like, I don't know, like, I felt like all I can say from like my heart is I felt like I was committing sin in that moment, and I just quit my job. I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. This feels like I felt like shameful in a way. And then like returning a year later to something that's actually calling me, which is spending time in a park, spending time in nature, my knees on the ground, my hands in the soil, laboring and actually working with my hands, which is something I'm very passionate about. That's something I actually found through my inner child and how I used to be as a boy and how I actually used to play as a kid. Well, now as an adult at 29 years old, I'm lit. Like, this is like the funny thing, like when you listen to your conscience and you follow your inner child, you literally find like the kingdom. you literally return to like the Garden of Eden, which is just like interesting. And so like you can actually think about this metaphorically, of course, like, oh, you'll return to the Garden of Eden. I'm literally there. This is just like a crazy thought. I don't know. It's like, so by following your inner child and that sort of conscience that tells you what's right from wrong, and then obeying that and following that sort of like narrow path, you will then find your vocation. You will then find your calling, because in order to have a fruitful life where you find joy and meaning in it, you have to kind of detach from the very like material worldly notions of success or money and status and fame, because these things are very base at best and honestly just kind of lame. And it's like, yeah, you need food, you need shelter, you need money to accomplish things and buy things, but like this isn't the goal of life. Like the goal of life to me is to fulfill something greater than myself. And so by positioning myself in a place now where I can contribute to something bigger than myself by tending this land and cultivating paradise, cultivating the Garden of Eden on earth, it's like maybe I could revitalize a forest. Maybe I can treat this 27-acre plot of land as my canvas. And as an artist, this is exciting, you know? And so I guess my path is my path. Your path is going to be very different. And we all need to follow that voice within us and that inner child that just wants to come out and play. Because you want to make sure that when you wake up in the morning, you're full of enthusiasm. When you look at the word enthusiasm, it quite literally derives from the idea that you are possessed by God. And so when you have the divine within you, calling you and beckoning you out there into the world, you are voluntarily playing the game. Whereas in the modern world, we're involuntarily playing the game. We're forcing ourselves to wake up to an alarm. We're forcing ourselves to toil and to work. But if the toil and the work and the thing that you're sacrificing is actually something that's bigger than yourself, that you genuinely care about, well, then there you have the paradise. There you have the kingdom of God on earth. And it's kind of just crazy, because as much as you can think about it metaphorically, I think you can think about it literally too. Like, what's the alternative, right? And so this is just a really empowering thought. And I don't know, I feel like I just feel like that's a beautiful way of thinking about it, because we shouldn't just work jobs to produce economic energy. That's kind of not the point of life. I think the point of life is to contribute to something greater than yourself, to actually provide value for others, to contribute to humanity or God's creations like nature. And yeah, just maybe through finding your vocation, you will then find yourself returning to the Garden of Eden. You will then find the kingdom of heaven on earth. And I genuinely believe that. I genuinely think that if you follow that sort of straight and narrow path. You will follow your vocation, and it will lead you to paradise on earth. It's the truth that I've found through many, many years of solitude, many, many years of contemplation, of just listening to that inner voice. So, do you want to work a job, or do you want to follow your vocation? Maybe we should think more critically about this so that we don't have regrets, and so that we don't... And the other thing that's kind of interesting too is when you consider the religious implications of the word vocation, I actually believe too that like the path that I've chosen is almost like me sort of stepping out of the rat race and returning to simplicity and spirituality, because even on the like physical fundamental like level of what I'm doing for work, like I literally designed this Zen garden, and the Zen garden is about to be put down this week, and so I'm literally gonna have like, I'm literally living like a modern monk, and I'm actually creating paradise for myself on earth, and I'm designing and making a literal Zen garden where I can then find peace. So if this was like a different time period or whatever, like I'd probably be in Rome and like just like be like in the Vatican or something, honestly. But like this is just a different or somewhere. Like I'd probably be like, I'd be right now, like I'd be like striving like, oh, maybe I could go to Mount Carmel or like somewhere in Israel and just like go up in the mountain and like just chill out with some like monks and shit. Like that would be kind of cool. But it's like, I don't know, I like street photography, I like society, and like I like people and everything. And so you can kind of like design your life in a way that aligns with who you are. And so if you're a monk, if you're a modern monk, well, let's kind of cheat the system a little bit and find a way to do that. And so yeah, you don't have to play the game like everyone else is playing the game. That's what I'm trying to say here. And I'm speaking like quietly and stuff today because the sounds are just so beautiful. I'm just like listening to all these beautiful birds and stuff. It's like, turn the video off and I'm gonna just listen to these beautiful chirping sounds now. Wow. Just sharing my perspective, sharing my thoughts, sharing my life authentically as I possibly can. And hopefully something I said can benefit you. Hey, look, this is the Achilles flower. This is the yarrow. Apparently Achilles used this to heal soldiers on the battlefield. It's kind of cool. It's my new favorite plant. I think the scientific name is like Achillea or something.